from Lee. Yo, when my eyes first spotted your men, I knew it was time for me to start reaching in the closet again. I start seeing how you guys pretend. I'ma get him and make sure he ain't coming that Vado again. Hey yo, you think spitting garbage will win? You won't make it to Linux. I see two of you shot on fifth. You ain't never been on 1/4-5. My waist keep at least 1/4-5. That'll make your ass run home, dick. You still talking like you know a nigga. Motherfucker, you don't know a nigga. I'm too high for you lower niggas. I drive by when I blow a nigga. You gon' die, I give ether to hoe a nigga.
Tion Isaiah Winfrey, also known as Vado, born March 13th, 1985. Today's feature at one point had everything aligned around 2010 to become the next best thing in hip-hop, and more specifically, New York City. He was young, talented as a rapper, and conveniently backed by a legendary hip-hop artist that I thought was the best fit for him musically in Camron. The rap group The Diplomats are arguably the biggest group in hip-hop history that put out classic albums, singles, and features that stamped their names in the history books in the early 2000s. But around 2008 or so, they disbanded and all went their separate ways. With leader Camron already a multi-platinum artist and originator in his own right, followed by Jim Jones, who no one really saw becoming the star he became, the group had a very appealing hold on the culture through their slang, dress code, and charismatic personalities. The group's youngest in charge and Stunted Growth alumni, Juelz Santana, was the young protege of the group that, like LaMelo Ball of the Ball Brothers, had the best shot at really becoming a household name before disagreements cut the group short of its potential. But Camron wasn't done. He formed a new group called the UN after the split and introduced us to an MC that I myself thought could be the new Juelz Santana in his own right, and stepped right into Camron's shadow and dominate the role until he was ready to become the #1 guy himself. At first glance, or should I say sound, the UN was a perfect fit. The older legend in the game that already accomplished all he could in hip-hop, with a fresh group and fresh new young protege he could mentor that was supposed to give Cam a jolt in the industry while building Vado's own resume as Harlem New York's next best thing. But this, unfortunately, wouldn't happen, and Vado would fall out of the plane before it even took off for these reasons. Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Ash, get him. Growing up in Harlem, New York, Vado knew he wanted to be a part of hip-hop from a young age and would get a glimpse of that opportunity at the age of 19 when rapper Mase visited Harlem and was entertaining MCs that rapped for him on the block. Immediately, friends of Vado's came and got him out of his GED program and rushed him to where Mase was so he could hear Vado rhyme. Impressed with his raw Harlem vernacular and look that could cross over into big screen success, along with his youth and the neighborhood vouching for him, Mase took Vado on a day-long car ride that by the end of it led to him taking Vado back with him to Atlanta for a 3-month vacation to work on music and possibly be Mase's protege, seeing as Mase had a deal on the table with 50 Cent and G-Unit. The deal fell through and Vado was back on the block. Not for long though. Stunt number 1, leaving the shadows. Shaquille O'Neal had an interesting quote a while back comparing legendary shooting guards he played with, Penny, Kobe, and Wade, to the Godfather trilogy, saying that one wasn't ready for me to hand it over to him, one would do anything to be the man, and the last one being D. Wade, who he had no problem handing it over to. I found that quote interesting because it's important to understand that in all walks of life, as it could help you to not move too soon in your quest to be the man and later find out you just didn't have what it takes as yet to do so. Vado was Penny Hardaway in this situation. He met Camron in 2009 from a mutual friend and was invited to the studio to do a song or two with Cam that by the end of the night turned into Camron signing him to his new group, the UN, and Interscope Records. After word got out, immediately the attention swung to Vado as everyone wanted to see this new signing that was perceived as Jewel's replacement of sorts as Camron's right-hand spitter. The two got to work and dropped their first projects together, Boss of All Bosses 1 in August 2009 and Volume 2 January 2010. He'd Hear Volume 1, the album, would come soon after in May 2010 that featured Vado on the front cover with Cam in the background as to suggest it was now Vado's turn to lead the charge. Critically, fans, including myself, loved the connection and chemistry the two had together as they reminded us of the days before when Jewels and Cam would connect musically. Vado brought that young, hungry spitter's flavor that had clear influences of Jay-Z, Shine, Biggie, and even a little Santana. Camron played his role well as the boss that was just having fun while looking out and trying to guide a fellow Harlem MC to the pasture. Vado dropped his debut mixtape Slime Flu in October 2010, and by then it was known that he was next and expectations were for him to become a star. He was placed on features with DJ Khaled, who was one of the hottest acts in hip-hop at the time, and began getting national notoriety, releasing another album, Guns and Butter, April 2011 with Camron, that peaked at number 78 on the charts and 7th for US rap albums. Unfortunately, Interscope didn't see Vado blossoming into a star and dropped him from his deal. Instead of staying with Camron and continue working the UN, Vado decided to sign with Florida label We The Best and DJ Khaled. This was the worst thing he could do because Camron was still such a huge light on Vado that when he left to sign with Khaled, fans saw him as disloyal in a way and leaving the best fitted home team situation he could have. As for why he didn't sign with Camron and stay with the UN, Vado says Cam wanted to hold him into a long-term 6-album deal and he just wasn't with that. His numbers, along with the attention, declined every year after leaving the UN until he was no longer relevant to talk about. Stunt number 2, signing to Khaled.
Been a slow month, nothing came the whole month. I need a whole front, but watch how they all front. Rather see me stressed with a fully on. Quick to show me they success, but they'll put me on.
This signing was a huge stunt in Vado's growth for a few reasons. Besides how it looked him leaving Camron, it also hurt Vado that he went all the way to a down south Florida label like We The Best to sign with a guy that was known for being basically a mascot for hip-hop that to this day many don't understand his relevance, seeing as he's not an artist and to my knowledge no longer a DJ. So how is leaving a hometown New York label and Camron to begin a new journey with an out-of-towner that has no legendary work under his belt as whatever he's supposed to be in music? Along with the fact that none of his artists ever really reached their full potential, like Ace Hood, who was supposed to have been what Meek Mill eventually became. Khaled didn't have much to offer Vado except he had the popularity at the time as he began to trend for his putting together tracks featuring artists who wouldn't normally work together. I think Vado was confused by the Khaled trend and as Shaq said about Penny, thought he was ready to stand on his own as an artist. Instead, with or without Khaled's help, fell flat of his potential. He released a bunch of mixtapes and singles under We The Best, but nothing charted or stuck and the flame he had with Cam slowly faded. Stunt number 3, domestic violence. Around the end of 2014, Vado was pretty much done as a rapper mainstream really cared about. The Game was getting younger, he had left one of the Game's most beloved rappers and personalities, signed with a label that confused everyone but him as to why he did that, and wasn't creating groundbreaking music good enough to set him back in the spotlight as he aged. But the final nail in the coffin was going on reality TV shows and for the most part embarrassing himself in a relationship with Tahiri. For many, that was the last straw. I think it's always better to stay grinding and perfecting your craft that will lead you to success instead of taking a bag and putting yourself in a bad national light, scripted or not, in the name of fame. In 2020, on a show called Marriage Boot Camp, Vado was seen losing his temper and choking his partner Tahiri after she threw apples at him earlier and said things in the moment he perceived as disrespectful. He was removed from the show, and although his musical career was finished by then, he began to lose endorsements and future deals because of the situation. It may have even stunted a comeback of some kind, but most definitely painted him in a bad light moving forward that almost assures his music career is done. All in all, I think Vado could have carved out a nice lane for himself under Cam as the new face of lyrical content from New York City in a time where everyone else were mostly copying the melodic new wave. I think he sold himself short over the course of his career for the national light, and it ended up hurting his music instead. He was a solid artist that many respected at the time of his entrance, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth, and I'm out.
My team on a different level from y'all. We on the grind to score. I see your man, don't rhyme no more. You a bitch, I ain't gotta squeeze the nine no more. I wanna look you in your eyes for sure.
Come from a place little niggas just bust toys. Wild and ignorant, but you're in